Hello, and good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on when you're listening to this. My name is Bluu Luu, and my pronouns are she, her, he, him, or they, them. Today's context report will be on The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Most people have heard of Wilde, the man famous for being famous. He's like a mythical beast or a unicorn, a person we only hear of in passing. For the next 5 minutes, I will be discussing Wilde's wildlife. If you hear any meowing or strange thuds in the background, like just now, oh goodness, that is my roommate's cat, Boo. Everyone say hello to Boo. As we read The Importance of Being Earnest, it is essential to keep in mind the themes of both the play and Wilde's life. His work addressed a lot of society's problems. This play, in particular, explored the societal expectations of marriage, status, and morality. Wilde's work was also very influenced by his identity. He was a gay man living during a time when being homosexual was very much illegal. He is known now, today, as a queer icon, someone who stands alone in influencing modern-day works. And very popular work that I would look into if you were interested in seeing how Wilde affects queer artists today, is the YouTube animation clip that went viral in 2017. It's called In a Heartbeat. Linked in the description of this YouTube video podcast, you can find In a Heartbeat. Please leave love to the creators. Well-established author Jason Lalonde says the following about reading The Importance of Being Earnest. Start quote. Wilde's narrator takes a project that is essentially one of recovery, a counter-reading in the face of the heterosexist narratives that have effaced the homosexual desire at the heart of Shakespeare's sonnets. End quote. Oscar Wilde was on trial for being queer in the same year this play was released, 1895. He was 41 years old. Well, that gives you something to chew on. I will now give a short but very relevant biography of Oscar Wilde's life. Since the beginning of his existence, he wanted to be famous, or in his own words, notorious. In his early 20s, he succeeded by publishing one-liners, or catchphrases that captivated the public. His one-liners were published all over the world. His picture was posted in every single store window, every home, in every single town in the United States and in Europe. Wilde was famous for simply talking pretty, hence being famous for being famous. Much like the modern-day influencer, like on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. To conclude my part, I will leave you with some final questions to mull over as you read. What is Wilde saying about marriage, love, and family in The Importance of Being Earnest? What is Wilde saying about status? And finally, what does it mean to be earnest? Hold on, as Ryanne will now continue with more.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryanne Biernat, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and this week's play is Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. And my job for the context report is to talk about the themes and plays of Oscar Wilde. So Oscar Wilde wrote many plays throughout his lifetime. He wrote about 9-ish plays throughout his career, and he also wrote a couple of poems throughout his career as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But some of his most renowned plays that are known today are The Importance of Being Earnest, came out in 1895, Lady Windermere's Fan came out in 1893, An Ideal Husband came out in 1893 as well, and A Woman of No Importance also came out in 1893, and then Salome, or Salome, however you want to pronounce it, came out in 1891. And then his book of poems and fairy tales he established or published a little later in his life before he died. So some of the themes that Oscar Wilde tends to tackle are devoted friendships, the LGBTQ community, and more so in his plays is aesthetics versus ethics. So we're going to talk about a little bit of all those right now. So let's start with devoted friendships. In his plays and his poems, he establishes very strong friendships. And this can be in between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or etc. So he really wanted to tackle, how friendships are viewed in society, how people communicate with one another, and that's where the importance of language comes in. When Wilde wrote his plays, he really wanted to set up, how people communicate with one another, and how, if you're in a different social class, how do you communicate with, the different social classes, and how does that set up, friendships, and how does that send up, bonding, in a way. So then he did write about the LGBTQ community, which was more seen in his poems and fairy tales a little bit before he died, but he did tackle the issue of homophobia. He did write towards the theme of homophobia, but I think this has to do with what is homophobia? Why do people think that way? What do people think about homophobia if they're part of the LGBTQ community or not? And so throughout that time, this is a quote, nascent gay rights movements embraced him as a hero of defiance. So he was a hero of defiance when he was openly coming out and openly just talking about homosexuality and heterosexuality. So, and then this is also important because it connects to the next topic we're going to talk about, which is the aesthetics of how society pursued the LGBT community at the time. So, talking about aesthetics versus ethics, this is overall, the beauty is the secret to life. And so, a little example, in Biernat, Prince Paul is a renowned philosopher, but Wilde makes it clear that sometimes this kind of character doesn't need all to be good. So Wilde tends to tackle these very posh, very pretty characters and give them a more complex role and give them more of a mysterious, or just make them more natural and not be stereotypical. And then in Lady Windermere's Fan, there tends to be a lot of immoral behavior caused by higher classes in his plays. Therefore, he creates a sense of ethics that don't make sense, and that makes the audience question the play, and it makes them think, and that's what Wilde really wanted to do. He wanted his audience to be confused. He wanted his audience to be immersed into the play and to learn. And then also in Lady Windermere's Fan, morality is able to diminish the value of beauty from any subject. And so this immorality is challenged by a lot of the characters like Jack and Algernon. So it's just a way to just see the value of beauty between these social classes. So that is something he tackles. And this shows that Oscar Wilde likes to make it interesting for the audience. And he wants to challenge their beliefs of what is moral and what is seen to be unmoral, even when they have these good people who are seen to be good characters. And he tends to make their personalities very complex. And that is what Oscar Wilde likes to do. And thank you so much for listening to these themes. I hope they help out a lot. And thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.